Welcome to Beyond Belief, Finding Unity Through Faith, a podcast brought to you by the Stanislaus County Interfaith Council. Join us as we embark on a journey to explore the rich diversity of faiths, belief systems, and spiritual traditions from around the world. In each episode, we engage in open-hearted conversations with individuals from various religious backgrounds, seeking not only to understand their unique practices and teachings, but also to uncover the common threads that bind us all together. By focusing on what unites us, Beyond Belief fosters a deeper sense of empathy, connection, and shared humanity, reminding us that beyond our differences, we are all seeking meaning, purpose, and peace. Join us as we bridge divides and find unity through faith.
Well, welcome. This is the Stanislaus County Interfaith Council podcast called Beyond Belief, Finding Unity Through Faith. My name's Tom Anderson. I'm here with my co-host, Pat Rhodes. We're very happy to have with us today Maanav Sharma. He's a priest of the Hindu religion here in Modesto. First, I'd like to thank Pat and his daughter, Brenda Hill, for allowing us to have this podcast in their facility here and using their equipment. They're not charging us anything for this, and that's a real benefit to the Stanislaus County Interfaith Council. A little about me. I just retired from practicing law here in this area for 50 years. I've grown to love Modesto. At first, I'm not so sure I did when it was so small, but now it's grown up, and I've grown up with it, and I'm very happy to be part of the community and especially part of the Interfaith Council. So that's a little bit about me. Pat?
I'm Pat Rhodes. I'm a physician here in the community. I've lived here since 1993. I do mostly pain management, but we also have a wellness facility, and this is kind of part of that because I think it's for our own psychological wellness. But anyway, I'm grateful to be part of this and grateful that the Interfaith Council has been so great in getting, people of different faiths, religions, belief systems to come out and share with us.
Okay, well, I know you are a priest in the Hindu religion, but you said you would like us to address you as Maanav, is that right?
Yeah, Maanav absolutely works.
All right. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your faith journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, my name's Maanav, but if I were to introduce myself out in public, you would probably hear something a little bit more along the lines of Pandit Maanav Sharma, as the full title is. But otherwise, I have been a practicing Hindu priest since I was 18 years old. I'm now 25. So I started my journey pretty early on within life. I'm also a fifth generational Hindu minister, and the ministries and my path of religion has also ended me up here in Modesto. As I've mentioned, when I was 2 years old, my family moved out here to Modesto, and my dad, he was at the Claus Road Temple, which is the biggest temple here in Modesto, and at the Sri Ram Mandir. And until 2008, we once left the temple. We started our own on Coffee Road, the Hindu Religious Cultural Center, which now both of us serve as. And we are also a part of the Stanislaus County Interfaith Council, which has given us the great honors of being here today on this podcast.
Well, thanks so much for that history. What is your country of origin, your family's?
So I'm originally from Fiji, the Fiji Islands, and then moved here in 2001.
So the Hindu temple, can you explain to us a little bit more about that and what's the function of it and what happens there and when your services are and so forth and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Hindu temple, or the English way of saying it, the temple, but if you were to properly pronounce it, the mandir, or the house of worship for us, the mandirs around, they all practice different hours depending on each mandir that you are at. Ourselves, we are open to the public throughout the week, but our services are held on Tuesday evenings and then every other week on Fridays. We are also open to the community when it comes to our holy days, so we'll be open anywhere from 3 days to 9 days, 10 days, depending on the holy days itself. And then we'll be able to, I guess, soon here, once our reconstruction is done, we'll be opened back to the public for doing music lessons, Hindi lessons, and courses for our oncoming generations to take a part of.
What kind of musical instruments do you teach over there?
So Indian classical instruments is what we're focused in. So the harmonium, the tabla, the dholak, the naal, the mridang. A lot of them are instruments that made it through India from different countries, like the harmonium itself. India has claimed it as its own instrument, but the origin started back in Germany long, long ago. But when the traders came over, they brought it along with them. And so those are kind of the different classical instruments that we are focused on. They're also the same instruments that go along with the, hopefully, the dance courses that will be used, because the same instruments make the music that we dance to.
I think Hinduism is one of the oldest religions, isn't it?
Currently one of the oldest practiced religions. The only other religion, I guess, that kind of stands with it is Zoroastrianism, where depending on who you ask, if it's still practiced properly or not, or traditionally, I guess that's where the difference comes in. Because Hinduism, most people say for the last 5,000 years has been practiced promptly about the same way.
How many Hindu temples are there in this area?
In Modesto itself, we have 4. And then in the greater California area, closer to about 150 to 200. Just depending on what city you end up in, you may find 0 or you may find 5 to 6 of us. But we have seen growing numbers in temples because the Hindu community in California and America itself is growing to numbers that we haven't seen before.
Do you think that growth, do you attribute that to more people that are Indian or Fijian coming over, or do you feel like there are people converting to Hinduism?
It's been a mix of both. We have seen a lot of people coming in from India and from Fiji or other Hindu practicing countries.
Indonesia, is that?
Yeah, so Indonesia, depending on what part of it, obviously they follow different parts or different sects of Hinduism, but yes, still follow Hinduism. And they are able to, find their own communities here with the different options of temples that they have. Because each of the temples, depending on native tongue, depending on the dialect of Hindi or Sanskrit that the person speaks, they want to go to a house of worship where they can understand worship services. Just as here we're also used to hearing English services about Hinduism. And we have also seen a big transformation or conversion of non-traditional Hindu believers converting into practicing Hinduism. But we don't like to say converting, because you can have your own belief and still follow the paths of Hinduism without becoming Hindu, but having Hindu beliefs, because it's not, a classical way of saying the word religion. We don't have a word for it in Sanskrit. We go ahead and use the term dharma, and I actually think I might be the first dharmic religious speaker that's come onto the podcast, because I guess that's what sets us aside from the big Abrahamic religions that are practiced across the world. Yeah. That being said, I don't think we've seen too many conversions, as you've said, but we have seen a lot more open-mindedness and to seeing how the community has accepted us and taken the religion or the belief paths itself, and I guess mix a little bit of the community into it to make it its own.
So I might be wrong, but I feel like a lot of people following the Yoganandas, or however you say it. I'm sure there are a lot of devotees from all walks of life, of probably all nationalities, and I guess maybe they consider themselves Hindu.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's where the guru sanskar comes in, because the like Yogananda and the spiritual leaders, they're seen as gurus or teachers of the faith. And depending on their personal belief is what they are going to set an example with for their followers or the devotees themselves. Once that guru relationship is made, that is their personal way of following Hinduism. And Hinduism in itself is more of a westernized terming for the religion or belief itself. Majority of the traditional followers will actually refer to the religion as Sanatan Dharma, or the path of truth. And to be on that path, not necessarily you have to be a Hindu or a Sanatani. It is instructions or way of living life that you can live to better not just yourself, but your community, the people that you're along with as you're practicing the religion.
Are you also a guru?
So to be a guru, you do have to be a saint, or you have to have taken a sannyas, or basically making a sacrifice in your life that you have not stepped away from. So for a lot of the gurus that you see, they will either not be married, they have given up their traditional lifestyles, so they will not follow in technologies. They will live very basic lives. They won't shop for food, as they will live off of alms or stuff that has been provided for them by the public itself. And that kind of shows their relationship that they are trying to prove to God, or the almighty believer, the supreme power that they believe in, is that I have made enough of a sacrifice, or I'm trying to prove myself to you to be able to reach moksha, or to break from this reincarnation cycle, which
What's
is
moksha?
Moksha is eternal peace. It is no longer coming back, and in the cycle of reincarnation, which is a very prominent Hindu belief, is going to be, once we have left this humanly body, our soul, depending on the karmas that we have done, or the good deeds or bad deeds that we have done in life, either gets a different chance to redo its actions, and then to prove itself, basically, that I am now ready to be a soul one with God. Okay? The term for the soul that we use is Atma, or in Sanskrit, Atman. And that is connecting us to Paramatma, which is the supreme soul, or in some words, the Brahman, the eternal cosmic universe, this big energy that is all around us or within us. And that's why a lot of us focus on how we can connect ourselves with one another to find a religious focus, because we don't want to see a difference between you and I, because we're all children of God. We're all children of the same universe, and we will one day go into the 5 elements that we are made up into, the 4 natural earth elements, and then the 5th element being the soul that resides within all of us.
So is Brahman the ultimate reality then?
Brahman is technically the ultimate reality, because it has not been seen by any of us to witness what it is. So that is technically the ever-moving force, the ever-moving time, the energy that we can't see, but it is always going to be surpassing us. We'll never be able to keep up with it. We will only be able to come and go from it. And that's kind of what Brahman is. It is this eternal universe. It is this eternal being, because it's not just our galaxy and the cosmos all come together, but it is everything and anything. That is Brahman. So Brahman is not just you and I, but it is also the person sitting next to us. It is also the animals that we love and care for. It is also your worst enemy that you might have. But it is within all of us. And like I said, our biggest goal, or one of the reasons that we believe in cremation after death for Hindus, is because we don't believe that this body will be of any use anymore to us, because it is just... I guess we have an old saying, like, it is like clothes that we have removed at the end of the day. We take it away, we wash it, we do whatever with it. Same way, the soul is using this body as just a vessel. We are here to do our good karmic deeds, and we are trying to build up karma to reach moksha. If we are not able to reach that karma within this life, then once again, that reincarnation cycle starts. We are given a different life form to try to be able to connect ourselves back to God, and to be able to find ourselves back onto the path of truth, right? I guess one of the biggest misconceptions of reincarnation is that we always come back as human. For us, we actually also believe, depending on your karmic traits and your beliefs in Hinduism, that you may come back as a different species, a different animal, either a water animal, insect, or a flying bird, anything of those sorts. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to come back as a human when we reincarnate.
So why would why would one come back as a animal rather than a human? Is there some advantage to doing that?
So it depends on, I guess, once the funeral cycle is done, I guess this is also part of the belief systems, but going more deeply into it, the karmic deeds are weighed out, good and bad, depending on how much of those good karmic deeds you are off of.
You've used karmic deeds a number of times. Can you explain what that is?
So karmic deeds are either the good deeds or the bad deeds that you're performing in life. Punya is the good deeds that you perform and the points that basically you receive from doing those good deeds. And then papa, or the bad deeds that you have done or the sins that you have committed, they fill the other vessel. They're both weighed up against each other to see where your karmic value lies, right? So what the weight is between the two of them on a regular scale. If your karmic value of good deeds is just a little bit off, then that little life cycle is put into play. You come back as an insect. You come back as something with a short-lived life cycle, so you can live out the karmic deeds, or meaning the good deeds that you are supposed to perform as that species, as that animal. So when you are coming back as a fly, you're not going to be trying to do human deeds. You're going to live the cycle of a fly. You're going to reproduce, you're going to eat, you're going to fly from here to there. Once your 18 days or so are over and your fly life, that is now moving on to a different life form. If you have properly been a fly in that lifetime, you are still able to reach moksha, or the release from reincarnation, in that life form. Us as Hindus, in the Hindu faith, we have a term or a shloka that is called Durlabham Manush Shariram. It means that this human body that we have is very, very valuable. The shlokas are pieces of information or verses that are pulled from holy scriptures, such as the 4 Vedas that we follow, or any of the newer more transformative scriptures such as the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita. But depending on which scriptures you follow as a Hindu, because we do not have one set book or scripture that any and all Hindus follow or read throughout their life. Some may follow a certain Veda, or some may follow just the Upanishada. And depending on those beliefs, they have those small variations, just as denominations do, small variations on what the result of your karmic deeds are. So what you will receive from doing those good deeds or those bad deeds.
Who makes the determination whether the deeds were good or bad?
So that is the Almighty. That is that supreme energy, that cosmic energy, the Brahman. When we say, how do humans know good and bad? We just know. When we see a good action happening, we know that that's setting off some kind of positive response in our body. Other people can see it. It sets off a positive response in them, usually deemed as good. The same way as if you were to be walking down the street, you see something, some trash laying there. If the thought process in your head goes through, someone should pick this up, the difference now becomes what makes you step away from being the person to go pick up the trash versus just being the person to think, oh, there is trash, right? So that's where you can gain your karmic points, your punya points, by actually going to be the person to pick up the trash instead of just thinking, oh, there's trash, someone should pick it up. It is actually moving on the actions of the thought, which is, yoga is kind of the way that we break down the actual thought processes and how we actually can reach moksha. So yoga, when you think about it in the more Western traditional way, we think of some nice big stretches out at the park on a Saturday morning. Got some dogs walking by, but yoga is more so a form or a tool that helps you reach your spirituality. That comes with different forms of yoga: jnana yoga, tap yoga, asana yoga, which is more so the Western style yoga that most people are aware of. But these are all different tools that you can actually use to strengthen your spirituality and to help deepen your connection with the Brahman or your God of belief. Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma itself is a polytheistic religion, but some may even go to the extreme of saying that it is the first monotheistic religion, because at the end of the day, even though that the supreme overpower, the Brahman, has taken different forms to explain and to do the deeds that were needed here on Earth or in the cosmic universes, it also goes back to the main energy. So people still say that at the end of the day, it could still be seen as a monotheistic religion instead of a polytheistic religion, which majority of the world does see it as because of the traditional practices. Till this day, there is majority Vaishvik Dharma followers, which are the followers of Lord Vishnu. They are seen as the majority Hindu population. There is also the Shiva Peeth followers who follow Bhagwan Shiva or Lord Shiva. And then there's Shakti Peeth, who actually follow Mother Goddess Durga as their supreme goddess. And just depending on which scriptures you are reading, that's kind of what breaks you up into the different sects or the different pitas of Hinduism itself. That's kind of the alternative word for it, pita meaning sect.
So it sort of sounds like, from if you were trying to make a Christian analogy to Hinduism, it sort of sounds like the Judgment Day in Christianity would be similar to Brahman making a decision about your karmic deeds.
Something like that. The process of death in Hinduism is a little bit more complicated, I feel like, compared to Abrahamic religions. The Hindu belief on death is it's very interesting, to say the least. From the day of death, we believe that the soul remains here with us for 13 days, as the proceedings of the prayers that go on for 13 days are held at the person who's passed away, their house. Once those 13 days of prayer are over, that soul has now been released. It is now going on its journey, either with Yama, who is the Lord of Death, or with Paramatma, or that supreme soul that they believe in. So either Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Krishna, Ram, just depending on the deity that they believe in the most or have the biggest connection with.
If you go the Lord of the Death way, is there a way out of that, or are you stuck with that forever?
No, not necessarily. You aren't stuck with it forever. It is one of those things, depending on your karmic deeds, depending on your own belief, that certain person will come to take your soul, or will then be your partner in journey for the rest of the journey with your soul. That person or that belief, that God, will also be with you when you are passing the Dietary. The Dietary is the name of the soul of rivers that is going. So this is the incoming and outgoing souls that are passing through, that are going through the reincarnation stages. We must pass that. But a lot of people's souls cannot make it past because they get pulled into the river. This is why during Hindu beliefs, when we are at the end of the 13-day prayers, the old traditional beliefs that were done back in the day, they would donate a boat in the name of the deceased. They would donate a cow in the name of the deceased, some kind of vehicle as a mode of transport to be able to get that soul across from point A to B. Nowadays, a lot of the traditional stuff has still happened, but they make like small silver versions of him. So it'll be a small silver boat, a small silver ladder, a small silver cow, and those are donated off in name of the deceased, so that their journey from passing can be smoother.
Is the incarnation thing we've been talking about, can that happen infinitely, or is there some limit to the amount of time that can happen?
It can happen infinitely just because we don't have a belief in an end. We believe in a very big cycle. We believe that the world lives in 4 yugas, or 4 stages. The Satyug, which is basically a simpler analogy. In Satyuga itself is basically when good and evil, they lived on 2 separate planets and they had nothing to do with each other. Satya means truth, and so everything on earth was very peaceful. No violence was here on earth. Everything was pure. Then that went into Dwapar Yuga, which then started to bring evil slowly onto earth. There was a mixing of evil within the earth as God had to come onto earth, or the supreme power had to take an incarnation or an avatar to then come onto earth. In our current cycle that we are going into, we believe that Lord Rama came into the Dwapar Yuga and he was able to handle the evil forces that were there. Then we move on to the Treta Yuga, which is when we believe that not only did evil reside as in my family and your family, but now it resides within family. Lord Krishna, one of the more well-known Hindu gods around the world, he actually came into that yuga to then explain that even his personal uncle, who was seen as an evildoer to the people of India, or the place that they reigned over, he had to then take care of his own uncle. And he had to explain to his uncle, and he had to, at the end of the day, go to war with his uncle to explain to him that even within families, that there can be what we use as the word kalesh, or there is always some kind of turbulence that can happen.
So you mentioned earlier that you don't believe in an end. For our finite minds, that might be hard to follow for
exactly.
me. But what is the ultimate goal, if there is an ultimate goal in Hinduism? What are we trying to eventually become, or is it just a process of eternal growth, or how would you describe that?
So basically, at the end of the infinite non-ending timeline, right now is what we're in is called the Kali Yuga, or the last days, basically. In this yuga, we believe that everything starts from day one. So there will be mass destruction. You can compare it to the traditional beliefs of Armageddon, but the end of the world. Right? For us, we believe that Lord Shiva, the Lord of Destruction, he will open his 3rd eye and the world will be of no more. And the universe then starts its process all over again from the Satyuga. And that's kind of why the non-ending is kind of weird, because each yuga has an end, but our timeline in itself has no end. Because each time the cycle repeats, the same supreme overpower, or the Brahman that we know of, is the supreme energy that comes back within us. It's the same energy. So people say that past education, I don't know, the old History Channel geek in me thinks of the Alien show, where they're trying to explain old aliens and how they might have been able to help us build the pyramids and temples in India, stuff like that. We believe that these different knowledges were maybe just lost over time from being passed generationally, and that the same way that the religion changes, the way that the education passed down itself changes. Hinduism as a religion wasn't documented about until 5,000 years ago, is why a lot of people say that that's when the start of the religion is, when the scriptures were written. But predating that, the traditions of Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma were more so what we call is Guru Shishya Sambad, which is meaning that there was a speaker and a listener, or a teacher and a student. And one person would orally say the stories, or they would be going over the mantras or the japas that they are trying to pass on. And the student or the shishya, they would be listening, taking on the information. Once they were able to, I guess, obtain that information the same that way that we are trying to obtain information nowadays, the only thing that's changed is the name that we call our gurus. Instead of saying the word guru, we just call them our teachers, our professors, our priests, our ministers, any way that we can let information into our life.
I guess my mind has been conditioned to a point where I'm trying to understand better what is the best outcome for me or my soul, or whatever word you want to use for what is the best outcome? For example, in Christianity, it would be live with God again. And what about the equivalent of that in Hinduism? Is there something that is the best outcome possible you can have?
And add on to his question, is that once you reach moksha, then what happens after that?
So I guess depending on which sect of Hinduism you ask, moksha for some people is the goal, where they are able to break from the cycle of life and death and reach moksha in itself. That's also where the astic beliefs come from. So like Jainism, Buddhism, the newer sects of Hinduism that have kind of broken off, they believe that once you reach moksha, that is the end or the finite line.
You unite with Brahman at that point?
Correct.
So in a sense, it's sort of like traditional Christianity, in that traditional Christianity, most Christian sects, I think, believe that the goal is to go back and be with God.
To be with God.
And is that kind of what you're saying? Although your understanding of God may be a little different than some Christianity understanding of it, but isn't that kind of the same thing? Or
at the end of the day, it's almost the same thought process for the baselining of it. Pat, how you kind of asked about the what happens after moksha. That's where the different sect beliefs come in. So depending on which sect of Hinduism you're following, you might go different loka, meaning that you're going to the world or the residence of your Ishta God, or the easiest way, your most favorite God, the one or the avatar that you relate to the most. The reason that avatars are created is so that we as humans, no matter how simple-minded we are, we could still find qualities in a person that we like or dislike. Some people, they like Mother Saraswati. She is the goddess of education. She is always seen in white clothing. She sits on a white swan, usually has a peacock dancing in the background. She has the sitar in her hand, and she is also the goddess of the Vedas. Most people see her and they think this purity, they see this divine light from her, and they follow her path, her educational path. Some see Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is one of the more, I guess, popular gods. How I said Vaishnavism is, I guess, one of the larger sects of Hinduism in itself. Vaishnavism, it's like that because Lord Vishnu himself has 10 avatars that he has taken. So from that one supreme god, even he has now broken into different avatars that he has taken to show different personality traits that the supreme power itself can have.
It's a manifestation of the ultimate reality.
Correct. And then that manifestation usually we see in more of a human form, kind of, I guess, the way that some Abrahamic religions would relate Jesus Christ to being, the walking embodiment of a higher power here on earth. The same way for us, like Lord Rama, he was physically here on earth for us to spread the same mission, to pass on the same education that has just been lost. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, another one of Lord Vishnu's avatara, he comes back and he explains to Arjuna in the story, his disciple, and he is going on and explaining about the conversation actually that we're having, how to break from moksha and how to become one with God or to become one with this higher power, and how do we live our karmic duties? What do we do? What don't we do? How do we do it? And how do we know if it's right? Right? It's a lot of these questions going through this man's head, and he's sitting there right before he's about to fight a war, and not just a war, but a war against his own family he is about to fight. So in this moment, Lord Krishna says that I have lived this life 1,000, 1,000,000, infinite times. I have always come back and given the same message, the path of truth. That's why it is the Sanatan Dharma, right? The Satya Sanatan Dharma. It is that everlasting truth path that no matter how hard you try to separate yourself from it, you end up mixing yourself back into some ways or some beliefs that mix from that original Hindu path.
So that path of truth is really a high place you want to reach.
Absolutely. And that's
and that path of truth is how do you define truth in Hinduism? Is it a reality? Is it just a education? Is it all of the above? What?
I guess all of the above is the best answer for it. It's a mix of everything. It is the known, or I guess you could break it into 4 categories more so. It's what we know, what we can see, what we can't see, what we know, what we can't see, and what we can't know, and what we can see and what we can know.
That's
all
interesting.
together.
The truth is part of knowing what you don't know.
Correct. Exactly. And how is that possible, right? Because we believe in the scriptures and the education that has been passed down through the scriptures or the Vedas themselves. But what we can see physically in front of us is a different truth. That is the truth of today, right? As we can put the beliefs of Hinduism into daily perspectives and read and choose different parts of Hinduism to then live our karmic deeds out. So to be a Hindu isn't just to go to the temple, to go and pray every so often. It's more so that style of life. It is to become one with the community. It is to become one with the world itself, because it's understanding that I am no better than you, you are no better than me. We are all equals of this wonderful universe. And this wonderful universe, we have to see the good in it, because sometimes the bad, it tries to overshadow it. It tries to overpower it. But in every storm, at the end of that storm, there's a rainbow. There's a little piece of light that we have to kind of wait out for. We have to try to keep ourselves focused on. And that's, I guess, the sticking to the truth path is why we stick to it, is because we want to be able to reach our end goal, right? We want to either reach moksha, we want to make connection with Brahman, we want to go to either the loka that we believe in, or I guess the different sect paths that we follow.
So
Excuse me.
One of the end goals then is this moksha, which I'm understanding you to kind of sounds like being liberated from having to go through the reincarnation cycle.
Exactly.
Kind of like nirvana in Buddhism.
Yep, moksha and nirvana kind of go hand in hand, but instead of, I guess, reaching nirvana and just becoming part of the universe once again, this is more so you are now opening another door to either go into Swarga, which is our representation of like the Western heaven, or Narka. Narka is our representation of the Western hell, right? Because those are still an option, depending on your karmic beliefs. And that goes back into what sect you follow of Hinduism, because Hinduism in itself is more so talking about a very large variety, right? And that's almost kind of saying like Abrahamic religions themselves, but Christianity, Islam, they all fall into that. And then even within like Christianity, they fall into denominations depending on how you follow the religion itself.
Would it be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, so this is kind of what if I'm going to improve myself and reach moksha, I try to do good karmic deeds, avoid bad karmic deeds, do myself to kind of really perfect myself, to change my inside to being a good person. Like it's not just about doing deeds and checking off boxes, but about even so that when I see trash, I want to pick it up. When I see someone in need, I want to help them. Those kind of things. Not about checking off a box. And so eventually you get good enough, or you become the kind of person that can reach moksha and then have eternal bliss or whatever. I mean, is that kind of...
Yeah, that's kind of, the basic layout of it. One of the, I guess, yogas that we were talking about, the yogas, they talk about Kam, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, Moh. In these 5 states that we have within ourself, they kind of go back to almost the 7 deadly sins, which is don't have pride, don't be lustful, don't lie to people, and don't kill, don't and then egotistical. Don't be egotistical. Be humble.
Words to live by.
Yes, exactly, right? But if you follow those basic paths, right? If you try to keep yourself away from those temptations, I guess the words that we can use, these temptations that are offered to us by the daily universe, it makes it easier to stick to the Satya path, right? The truth path. Once we have kind of embodied ourselves, if we have lustful thoughts and we try to keep ourselves away from them, if we have, I guess, not thoughts of murdering someone, but thoughts of anger to replace that, right? How do we calm ourselves down so that we don't do an action that we may regret later on, right? That may disturb our karmic balance. We want to be able to stay away from those temptations, these things that are trying to pull at us from all directions, especially in, like I said, this Kali Yuga. It's one of the yugas where temptation is at you at its highest peak. In this time frame, Kali Yuga was told that he has reign over a majority of places. So unpure gold is one of the places that Kal or death lies. Then you also have places of gambling, places of drinking, such places like that is also why Hinduism's majority of the practicing Hinduisms, they don't drink. A lot of them you will find in certain parts of India, they will also be practicing vegetarians like myself. We don't eat any meat, or we do use milk products, so not vegan, but majority of us are vegetarian. I guess the only thing that sets us aside from the Western belief of vegetarian, some beliefs, no egg for us. That's also a no-no. But I know that a few Westerners, that the vegetarian thought is that eggs are okay because it is an unfertilized item. But
well, I know they call the ovo-vegetarians or the ovo-lacto-vegetarians or egg and milk.
Right.
But and then pescatarians can eat fish.
Yeah.
But you, like you said before, the vegans are straight vegetables. And then you have your raw vegans, which don't cook anything.
Yep, go extreme. And, all different processes to keep the body healthy. And even in one of our Vedas, the Ayurveda, it's basically a whole holy scripture about different things that heat up and cool down your body in food world. So it goes down to like how we should cook and what kind of foods we should eat and not eat to be able to stick on to that truth path, to make sure that our body is healthy enough to keep going and be able to support either the meditation we are doing, the physical asana yoga that we are doing to keep ourselves strong.
Ayurvedic medicine is huge right now.
Yes,
absolutely. It's very popular.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people following the principles of Ayurvedic medicine are integrating it into Western medicine.
Absolutely. It's a lost tradition that's making a big comeback, and we've seen it too. I think the education portion of it is very important because a lot of these traditions were also used by Western, like chemists when medicines were originally created. Yeah. But now a lot of things just going synthetic, they have lost that natural touch to it. A lot of people, they still argue on, well, is it really synthetic? If you use natural materials to make a synthetic material, it's still natural. But we believe that it contains natural, if it came that way from the earth, and that is the way that we are processing it, that's the way that we are using it for its intentional purposes, not by mixing it to become, a synthetic or something that it wasn't supposed to be.
So does kind of going back a little bit, I was thinking of when we were talking about this eternal kind of progression until we reach a liberated state, and the reincarnation. Is it the caste system is still part of the Hindu religion?
It's kind of hard on this part to say if it's part of the religion in itself. It's maybe part of the, I guess, the geographical, the traditional beliefs. But the religion being so old, or the beliefs being so old, those traditional or cultural beliefs have now kind of merged in with the religious beliefs themselves, right?
Before we go any further, could I have you define for us what the caste system is and explain what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So caste system, depending on how you are born and into what of the, four castes. So you could be a Raja or Maharaja, which is the king caste. You are royalty. The Brahmana caste, which means that you are of the priesting variety. That's technically the caste that I would fall into. These are the people that go on to practice being ministers of their religions and to spread their religion. Then you have the Vaishyas, which are then the merchants and the higher educated population. And then they have the Shuddha, or the untouchables. These are the people that would have traditionally worked as servants under many kings and queens, or they would have been people who did jobs that were seen unhygienic, so they were kept away from the majority of the population, so that the other population would either A, not get sick, or the spread of diseases.
So when you are reincarnated, can you move up through these various, from a untouchable to a Vasya, to a priest, to a royal, or how high up can you go in reincarnation? So
in the reincarnation belief of it, I guess this is kind of that mix of the religion and the traditional caste, right? Because the caste system really didn't start popping into mainstream belief until I guess the British rule over India, where you saw a big change over into the treatings of the royalties as the royalties of the Great Britain, correct? And once the Indian people saw that the caste system kind of became more instilled into the now and current beliefs of India itself, and not only in India, even from us, I'm personally from Fiji. Once we broke away and we were taken as indentured laborers into the smaller islands like Fiji, Trinidad, Tobago, Ghana, a lot of places. But you are able to see the small formations of Hinduisms and the beliefs that still connect us back to the motherland. From those small beliefs, we have been able to keep ourselves as an ongoing traditional belief of the caste system, where people took that old seated belief of this is how things were and this is how things should be, versus the religious aspect of it.
So there's sort of a cultural versus a religious aspect.
Correct.
So in the religious aspect of it does the religious side of it teach the caste system still today?
The caste system portion of it that is only practiced and I guess focused on today is actually the Brahmana caste, or the Brahmin caste itself. And that's actually because those were the people deemed responsible for being able to spread the religion. So myself being part of that caste, it's one of those self-responsibilities where we take on, and that's kind of why I said I started at the ministries at the age of 18, but I started learning about Hinduism and the Hindu practices that we do, all of the Vedas, at the age of 13, which is when I had my Yajyo Pavitra Sanskar, or one of the 16 rites that we have as a Hindu. As that rite happened, it basically opened us up into the practices of spiritual beliefs and spiritual education. It gave us the permission to do that. So for the next 5 years in detail, I learned about everything about the religion that I could, how I can see it from different aspects. So going to different gurus or teachers to see what their beliefs are, which part or what sect of Hinduism they believed in, and were able to bring either from India, from Fiji, from whichever country they came to, and what part of Hinduism was important to them. But with that combined knowledge, it is, I guess, our choice as ministers to then pick what we want to move forward as our message about Hinduism, what we find important. And that's kind of where the ministry portion comes in, same as a Catholic or a Christian priest who has, of course, a sermon set aside where they use scriptures, they use the word of God, but they also use modern day examples. They use stories and beliefs and the examples that they're using to be able to invoke that same question, the same theology within us. Because sometimes it's hard to think of ourselves in either a Vedic text or literature, or even sometimes thinking of ourselves in biblical time periods because of how different the times are. You know?
So one of the things that I find really interesting, Sherry on our council gave us this right here.
The golden rules.
It has all of the religions here that she could think of, and then she has in the middle the golden rule, and every religion has their own saying that is so similar to the Christian golden rule. And I noticed in Hinduism it says here, this is the sum of all duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. And then it has a scripture, a
of
Hindu
the
scripture.
Mahabharata, yes.
Isn't that interesting that of all the religions, they all come back to the basic idea, treat people like you want to be treated.
Exactly. And for us, how we kind of try to break it down and explain it to the devotees or the oncomers of our temple is just imagine you have a little statue, because we believe in either idols or statues of God that represent God. If a little statue was placed right here within your heart or on top of your heart, now you can physically see the representation of the God that lives within you. Now, would you respect another person more because they had this symbol on them? Or are you still going to respect them the same because of the person that they are?
That's good.
Right?
Yeah, very good. So, we've kind of running out of time, and I'm sorry about that.
Let me ask just a couple of quick
Sure,
things.
sure.
Are there any dietary constraints that are different with you, or maybe the way you dress or things you carry? Like Sikhs have an obvious,
Correct.
with the headdresses and their underwear and their little knives they carry and things like that. How about with those of your religion?
So one of the most common markings you'll see is our tilak, or the tika that we wear right here. Okay, so that represents and also differentiates the different sects of Hinduism that we follow. Depending on the different sect that you follow, you have a different either shade, color, or shape of marking. The mark that we Fijian Brahmins practice, or Fijian Hindus usually wear, is straight up and down. This represents ekta, or oneness. As in, like I said, we believe in Smritiism, which is basically the beliefs that all of the avatars of the different gods and goddesses, all of them, no matter who's taken them, at the end of the day, they go back to the supreme Brahman. And that Brahman is the same Brahman, the same universe that lives within us, that we live for, that we are trying to basically rebuild our connection to. And I say Brahman, but I guess the other word is God, right? If you are trying to break it down to the basics, is we are trying to better our relationship with God by bettering our relationship with the people around us, because we see the respect of God within each other. That's one of the other standings of a Hindu. When we actually greet each other, we will either say the phrases Namaste, Namaskaram, Ram Ram, Sita Ram, praise be on God, any of those, because we are not just saying praise be to God, but we are showing that the God that is sitting within me is paying respect to the God that is sitting within of you.
That's good.
And that is the respect that we are trying to keep within each
I
other.
really like that a lot. But there's a marking that women have, and it be in the middle of their forehead.
So
there.
that is a bindi. The difference between a tilak and a bindi. Tilak usually represents what sect you're from. Bindi represents marital status for women. So if they are married Hindu women, you will see them either with the red bindi or dot right here in the center of the forehead, or sometimes they will take it up to the center line of the forehead and they will fill in the red powder here, the sindoor here. And that is to dignify and pay goddess to the goddess Durga. And she is the supreme goddess, basically, who we see as in Hinduism. And they see it as a blessing from her to give them strength to be able to, mothers provide so much to us, so what don't they do, But it's to be provided that strength to keep everything going, to keep the family running.
This has been so interesting. I'm sorry we have to break it, but we could go on forever. This is so much fun and we're learning so much. But I've kind of asked this question of all of the other people who've been on the podcast, the other leaders. What would your God say to us here on earth right now if he could speak to us? What would your ultimate reality Brahman say to us?
What are you guys doing right now? What's going on? But no, in all seriousness, I think a message of peace is much needed. And it's not a message of peace to any specific group or sect of person. It is to each and every individual out there to love one another. Doesn't matter race, religion, age, hair color, whatever it is. Whatever little tiff that you may have in your heart that this person is different from me. They are not.
That's so good. Everyone, interestingly enough, everyone who has asked that similar question to has said the same thing. It's just love one another and be kind and good.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And like you said, the golden rule, be kind to one another. Every religion, every world belief, we all follow the same thing. We just have our own way of explaining it to another person.
Oh. Pat, do you have anything else?
Oh, no, I hate to try and top that with something better because that's a good ending, but really thankful that you could come and
absolutely
you're so eloquent and shares your beliefs so well and help me to understand a lot of different things. And I might ask a few more things after, but we do got to close because it ends up being too long. Nobody wants to listen.
Manav, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.